The Samsung Galaxy S5 smartphone was released in April 2014, making the device more than 2 years old. Though despite this, I continue to use my S5 as a daily driver, and it recently got the Android 6 update as well, so it's running quite a modern version of Android. So the question is this still a good phone to buy if you're on the market for a relatively sort of high-end smartphone for not that much money? The S5 can be had for around about £150 on various sort of second-hand and auction sites, and for that you get a 2.5 GHz quad-core CPU, 2 GB of RAM, a beautiful 1080p display, a quite good camera in good light, a fairly nice sized battery, and 16 or 32 GB of storage, and also on the communication side, dual band wireless and a Cat4 LTE modem. So just from those specs, it is still actually quite a high spec phone. However, good specs are all well and good. However, if the performance is sluggish due to the OS or other reasons, then specs don't really matter. So how does the S5 perform in day-to-day use? Well, despite it being more than 2 years old, and me having a lot of apps installed on this device, with a lot of them actually running sort of at the same time in the background, as you saw there, it is smooth moving between menus. So say even if I bring that up, I can pretty much instantly switch between the windows. I mean, there is a slight bit of lag, it's not like an iPhone 7, but nonetheless it is very smooth moving around web pages and scaling around things, for example. So you see it's very nice and smooth there. Now if I just go into the home screen there, you saw that it loads into the home screen quite quickly, and if I just load the camera app, this does take a few seconds sometimes. So you saw there, it certainly wasn't instant. It does take it a bit of time to load, but apart from that, the camera app is still quite well featured. So you've got all the sort of usual options, and you can do other modes and stuff, and like I said, the camera is actually quite good quality even in rather low light, although it does get a little bit noisy. Now this can shoot 4K video, which is very nice. And actually the 4K video it shoots is possibly better than the video quality of the camera I'm actually using to film this video with. But of course, it doesn't have zoom, and it doesn't have optical image stabilization either. Now this does also have an SD card slot, and I have a 64 gig card in this phone. Because the 16 gig of storage with lots of apps, you do sort of begin to run low on storage reasonably quickly nowadays. Although, if you don't have a ludicrous amount of apps on the phone, 16 gigabytes is fine, and actually I'll survive with 16 gigabytes on this. It's just nice to have some spare, really. Now, a thing that you get with older phones is, of course, the aspect of battery life. Now, with this being 2 years old, and obviously having been used quite intensively, you wouldn't expect the battery life to be sort of what a new phone would have, although it does actually last quite well. In fact, it's actually probably better than my LG G4, which is obviously a much newer phone, but the LG G4 does absolutely seem to eat up battery life. Now, of course, the other thing to say with this is that if you stick the screen on maximum brightness, it does get insanely bright. So you can see there the brightness of the desk now is completely dimmed down despite this desk being very bright. And the screen on this is absolutely fabulous. It is a really nice screen. If you stick it on ultra power saving mode, the screen goes, well, it takes a bit of time, but the screen goes black and white. And that is a useful feature again to sort of get the last sort of proper time out of the sort of last 5% of the battery. But you can see here that it's gone down to a very reduced app set, and yeah, you can't really do very much with that, so I'm just going to disable that again. It does take a bit of time to get into the mode, but it is of course changing quite a lot. Now to try and get into the battery menu that I sort of originally intended to do. So you see here it is taking a bit longer to do things, and this sort of time it's taking now is sort of more reflective of the time it does usually take to do things. So we'll just bring up the battery menu here. So you see it's saying about 10 or 11 hours, and the actual number will be a bit less than that. And I certainly wouldn't have the screen that bright. I normally have it at about that level. If I just bring up battery usage, okay, I've just actually charged it, so you can't see, but it does last a whole day of use pretty much, without even with very sort of heavy data use on this device. So the Samsung Galaxy S5 is, in summary, still a very capable, very nice smartphone, and like I said, I continue to use it as my daily driver to this day, despite having an LG G4, so it must be a good phone because I'm quite a demanding user. However, for a sort of prospective purchaser, there is a lot of choice in the sort of roughly £150 segment. The closest competitor I can find on the sort of new market for that rough amount of money is the Moto G 4th generation, which retails for around about £140. Now, many of the specifications look fairly similar. So it's got a 1080p display, it's got 2GB of RAM, although the Moto G4, or the Moto G 4th generation, has a quad-core CPU that's at a lower clock speed than the S5. Now, I've previously used a Moto G 3rd generation, and it too is very sprightly. However, despite the screen on the S5 and the Moto G4 being 1080p, I think from using both that the Samsung Galaxy S5 does reach ahead in the screen department. In terms of camera specs, which are very important for many people, the S5 is 16 megapixels on the rear-facing camera, whereas the Moto G4 is only 13 megapixels. Also, the rear-facing camera on the Moto G 4th generation can only shoot 1080p video versus the 4K of the Samsung S5. However, in terms of front-facing cameras, there's really no comparison. The Moto G4 and even actually say the Moto G3 completely blow the socks off the front-facing camera on the Samsung Galaxy S5. However, for me it really comes down to the screen aspect, because apart from the screens, they're actually fairly similar, sort of using them both side by side in terms of the sort of user experience really. However, the screen on the S5 is really, really good, and that's why one of the core reasons that I've stuck with it, beside it just being a generally solid phone really. A very important aspect for some users will be that the S5 has a fingerprint reader and NFC, whereas the Moto G4 has neither of those, although the Moto G4 Plus does have a fingerprint reader. However, as I use neither of those features very often, I haven't really sort of compared them and included them in the main portion of this review. For £120, the Samsung Galaxy J3 is available. Now this is sort of rather lower spec in many ways compared to the S5, although it does share the S5's beautiful, or it shares a AMOLED display like the S5, which is very nice as well. However, the Samsung Galaxy J3's screen is only 720p versus 1080p. It also only has 1.5GB of RAM, and the rear-facing camera is 8 megapixels versus 16. The J3 also comes in 8GB and 16GB storage versions, and also has dual quad-core CPUs, much like the Moto G4 has. The Samsung J3 has NFC, but not a fingerprint reader. thank you for watching this video. If you are looking to buy sort of one of these phones or a phone within that sort of price bracket, sort of let me know which one you decided to go for in the end. It's sort of nice to know what phones the public buys really. So yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.